stablecoins, and Blackrock. How does one turn off emotions for trading? All right, so those of you looking for more clarity on this whole stablecoin conversation and what it looks like for the health of the crypto space, as well as the health of the individual, definitely check out this video. I'm gonna be going deep into what's been happening in the crypto space and the emotional volatility that it's put everybody into. So my name is Gomes. I've been in the industry for almost a decade. Through experience, I have been able to step outside of the crypto space and observe my own reactions and how they correlate to crypto. Okay, so stay to the end of this video if you want to find out how you can alchemize your emotions to work for you and not against you. This is going to be a great video, I promise. All right, so this last week, we collectively experienced a major black swan event from the crash of the Luna coin, as well as its stablecoin UST. Something that's really hasn't been seen since like the Enron days, where there was like $68 billion that were lost. Here, I think it was something like $55 billion. So not to focus primarily on the scheme, to compare the scheme itself or like how the structures were, but more primarily to focus on the emotional state of the traders, of the investors, of the people that were first a part of Enron and experienced that. And we got to see how that looked like in this world, in this reality. And now we're seeing something similar happening in the UST market or in the crypto market in general with this huge fall that happened from this black swan event. It's now more obvious than ever, in my opinion, that markets are mostly emotionally manipulated in these playgrounds, these like playgrounds of manipulation that have to do with trading, rather than there being true free markets with real supply and demand. So let's break down this event and see what steps we can all take to become more emotionally mature and make better decisions when we're investing. So stick to the end if you want to find out what those steps are. All right, so this all started back in November. The US government brought a lot of new scrutiny to the crypto space. For years, it's been around the SEC and looking at projects that were really considered securities and not really, utility-based tokens. So back in November 2021, the US created a little tiny task force or a report around stablecoins, basically saying, hey, this is a threat to the US economy. We have to start regulating this or we're in trouble. So pretty much, we're the guys in control and you're trying to take the control away from us. Don't do that. And that happened back in 2021. So since then, there has been a lot of focus, not only on crypto projects like stablecoin projects being introduced, new ones, but also a new focus and scrutiny from the US government on stablecoins. Since then, we've been kind of battling it out. There's been projects popping up trying to figure out the holy grail of APY, either by creating stablecoins that are purely based on algorithmic pegging or algorithmic stability, or a combination of that with a reserve, with either a reserve of dollars in the bank or like UST was trying to do, a reserve of Bitcoin. At the same time that this all started and this has been happening, we all have heard of the great Blackrock, Vanguard companies, also now associated with Citadel. They've been slowly accumulating assets and are now controlling upwards of 20 trillion, almost $20 trillion. That's insane. Their portfolio is insane. Just BlackRock alone is nearing about $10 trillion. I mean, that is a lot of money. I don't know if you guys understand what that looks like. 1 trillion is 1,000 billions. 1 billion is 1,000 millions. I mean, we're talking ancestral money. We're talking globe-changing money. I mean, the effects of that is insane. This is a subject that should be discussed daily. We should be talking about the centralization of assets on this massive scale. And I don't know why we're not. Oh, it's capitalism. They are allowed to. No, this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous. Now, with that said, I feel like we can get out of it. I feel like we can take back that control and we can take back that power. But it does take letting go of the mindsets and the ideologies, the ways that we have always done business. That's not going to work anymore. Capitalism as we know it, as we've experienced, as we've normalized, is not going to work moving forward. Period. Now stop associating capitalism with, well, if you don't want capitalism, you must want socialism. No. There are many other ways. We are very creative beings, okay? Humanity is creative. So we can come up with new ways. I've come up with several ways myself. I just don't share it as often. So there are ways to create these systems that are not associated with the old ways. So let's just keep going here. So recently, since this accumulation has started for BlackRock and Citadel and Vanguard, recently BlackRock has fixated its eyes on the crypto industry. They've even tried to facilitate a Bitcoin ETF, which is an electronically traded fund. It would facilitate pretty much the flow of money into the crypto space from the stock market, from the New York Stock Exchange. BlackRock has been slowly accumulating crypto with one big thing that it did recently. It was part of an investment round with a company called Circle. It was a $400 million funding round raised by Circle. And, this was an interesting move for them because Circle is also the reserve or the manager for the reserve currency or the reserve stablecoin USDC. And so the timing, right? The timing of all this is impeccable. You now have, well, now let's go back. You have the US government putting more scrutiny into the space around stablecoins specifically in November 2021. You have a ton of stablecoin projects start to pop up since then, as well as a scrutiny, this newfound scrutiny of the government, the US government at least. And then at the same time, you had these massive corporations that are accumulating everything shift their focus and attention towards the crypto space, specifically stablecoin. And now they invested into a company that is themselves a reserve. And they actually consider themselves one of the 50 biggest banks in the US based on the asset that they're managing, which is something like $50 billion or something like that, because that's the market cap of USDC currently. And so because they're one of the ones that manage that reserve protocol, Circle plans to go public. They're like, well, that's just the next step. Is if we're going to manage the reserve currency, we have to go public so that others can benefit from this. What is this all starting to sound like? Oh, and by the way, they're backed by dollars. But seriously, what is all this starting to sound like? Starting to sound like, oh, you have a private organization creating a reserve system, a centralized reserve system, which then goes public to facilitate, to be the currency back, the company that backs, or the officiator that backs the new circulating stablecoin or fiat. I mean, this sounds like the Federal Reserve. So we're just calling it different names now, but it's essentially the same thing. So now let's go to the next part here. Recent rumors, okay, and this was a rumor that I saw by some true OGs in the space. Recent rumors said that BlackRock has been working with Gemini and Circle. And again, this is all rumors and hearsay, and this is just something that I'm repeating because I believe that these OGs, these people that have been in the space for long enough, they're connected enough that they wouldn't tweet something like this if it wasn't real. They're saying that basically there was an attack, a coordinated attack between, in my opinion, and now this is my opinion, between BlackRock, Circle, the systems, the powers that be, to take down these other currencies, other stable coins that are true threats. Now, I'm not saying that UST and Luna are legit or, are not created by malevolent sources, but I can say this. It's the first time that I've seen a pretty well-established community, amazing products. I've used their products, as well as really the transparency of that ecosystem. Even Do Kwon, who was the leader of the stablecoin portion of the Luna marketplace or the Luna blockchain, he was very transparent. I mean, he was a kid, 25-year-old kid, try to figure it out. But I love that he's always been very open to discussing and trying to figure it out with the public. So it's just an interesting timing for all of this to happen, to where now all of this focus is going back towards USDC instead of staying on UST. So I don't know. It's again, timing is interesting for all of this. So all of this, right? All of this that's happened with Luna, with UST, with now it's the money's flowing to USDC. USDT, which is Tether, had a drop of 8-9%, where it was off peg for a while, and that scared a bunch of people. So again, there's a focus here towards stablecoin, towards that portion of the space. But with all that said, right, what we're really talking about here is that this shit's gonna happen. The things around us that we cannot control are going to happen. The chaos, right, is around us, happening around us. The question is, are you allowing yourself to become more aware of those things, to then be more grounded and have more discernment in the decision-making? Or are you just reacting to them and being driven by those emotions? That's riding the emotional roller coaster. I saw a tweet recently that says, how do we turn off our emotions for trading? And I thought in my head, I was like, you don't turn them off. You alchemize them. You take the emotion, you become aware of it. You connect the dots of where that emotion started, why it started, what triggered it, maybe even look deeper and where did it start originally? That awareness is key. That's the biggest difference, in my opinion, between amateur traders and professional traders. Amateur traders will react based on the information they're bringing in intellectually. Professional traders, they'll absorb the information intellectually, but then they'll step away and gut check. And then the gut checks to see if that decision is valid or is a good one or not. There's a combination of the intellect to the gut, and that is discernment. Okay, that allows you to step off the emotional roller coaster and onto solid ground to make a discerned decision. So this recent black swan event has caused much despair in the crypto space. I've read over, I think, 8 or 9 reported suicides, broken relationships to self, like self-hatred, and all of these destructive actions, right? Why were people acting this way? Because of the emotions that they're not really in tune with. And so we must start asking the deeper questions. Am I conscious of the choices I'm making in my investments? Am I conscious of the reactions that I'm having to the market conditions? Or am I just allowing the emotions to choose for me? Am I allowing the emotions to drive the actions? And am I allowing the emotions of others to drive my actions? That's probably the deeper question, is to really look in self and see, am I in control of I? So here are a few practices that I've accumulated over the last almost decade of being in the crypto space that really have helped me become more grounded and more direct with my decision making. So number 1, find a daily practice rule. Make a rule on a day for every day as an investment. So find out what that practice or rule is and execute that rule every day, regardless of the price or market conditions. This is called dollar cost averaging, okay, DCAing. That will help you essentially create a larger profit gap and essentially mitigate the volatility, which then allows you to step away from the emotional reactions. Number 2, write in a journal. Just write in a journal. Okay, take a moment when you have a feeling of despair or euphoria, whatever the feeling is, if it's good or bad, take a moment, write down the emotion, write down when it happened, why it happened, like what triggered it. And the more you do that, the more you write it down, the more you start to rewire and remap the synaptic pathways that you normalize. And it'll just start to normalize different behaviors. And so that is the first step, is awareness, is being aware of what those emotions are and how they correlate to the events or to the actions themselves. And then the last thing is find a daily emotional practice. Okay. You had a physical practice of like investing, and then you create the rule. And then there's an emotional embodiment practice. And that's like being aware of how it feels to do something that has to do with money. All of this is really to get you closer to your relationship to money. Because money at the end of the day is just a representation of your self-worth. It's just energy. And the more you can flip the script and put the worth and the value of you back inside of you, that's when the money starts to be your bitch. So let's just make money our bitch. You guys ready? Let's make money our bitch. Because that's the only way to the true path of abundance, is the awareness of the scarcity, letting go of it, and the awareness of the embodiment practices for abundance and bringing that in. These are the steps, okay? Manipulation through the mainstream narrative is not anything new. It's been used for decades, okay? Crypto is just another tool that is being manipulated and being distorted, that are essentially using the same destructive systems to control and manipulate emotions. It's just a different tool, okay? They're using the same narratives, the same structures. So just be aware of them. Be aware of information that comes with an emotional charge. Those are traps. The more awareness you have, the easier it will be to step away from the emotional roller coaster and into a grounded state of being, human being. All right. So I love you guys. I really want you guys to thrive and pursue sovereignty in this ecosystem, in this industry. So if I have helped you in this video with just becoming a little bit more aware of your emotional state and being able to separate yourself from the market conditions and the manipulation that's happening in the narrative, and really start to ground yourself in what the practical steps you need to do today for your family and your goals, so that you start to really hone in to what it feels like to be free, to actually be sovereign. So if you enjoyed this video, if you want some more of this, make sure you subscribe to my video here on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, all the good stuff. And yeah, I love you guys. And always remember to gamify your abundance. Love you guys. Bye.